This organization is one of the founding members of a group called the Inventors Groups of America. And what that is it's the leaders of each inventors organization in every state across our nation. So we meet together, the leaders meet together once a month, and we actually look at legislation. We talk about how to better our organizations. We share resources, and we also have speakers come in. We meet through Zoom video conferencing, and we do have speakers come in that are relevant to to what you guys do. So I find opportunities that I wouldn't be able to find otherwise. So that's kind of another thing that we do. Also, we are collectively trying to influence a lot more that's going on in Washington, D.C., which I'll talk a little bit about before Alex comes up here. But we have found that since all the leaders get together of every state in our union, we now have a very, very strong voice in Washington, D.C. So you think about it. We have 100+ members here. So every state has an inventors organization of anywhere from 25 people to 200 people. So collectively, we have a voice that we didn't even realize we had a year ago. So we're using that voice to kind of guide our Congress and educate them on what's going on, with our patent system. Does anybody, other than members, does anybody know what this is?
Our friend, Mr. Lincoln.
Exactly. This is Abraham Lincoln is the only president in our history that ever invented anything. And he got a patent on it. And so it's really kind of interesting. This is just a little tidbit of knowledge, but it's a flotation device to help the river boats get up over the levees and over things. So it's really kind of interesting to see how we know him for other things. Very few people know that he also was an inventor. Now this is the only thing he got patented, and our founding fathers really realized how important patenting is. So it's kind of embedded in our DNA, our inventive spirit. We're not copiers. We're innovators. America has always been innovators. That's what our country is built upon. And for over 200 years, we led the world in innovation because our patent system protected us. It was better than any other country in the world. So, the patent protection is in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. So look it up. I have a little, like a pocket constitution that was my great-grandfather's, and it's like from 1829, something like that. It's really old. 1889. And when we go and we talk to congressmen, I pull that out and kind of show, hey, this is not just us. Our founding fathers wanted to protect us because that's the basis of our country. Everything we see, everything we touch, somebody invented. So, and most of the time it's an American that invented it. That it's really important. Now, our patent protection system in the United States does need revision. So I'm deviating a little bit here from what I normally do. Normally I do just kind of an introduction of who we are. But tonight I'm going to go through some of the things that we go out and we talk to, like our state legislators, we talk to our representatives, we go to Washington, D.C., and we talk to senators and congressmen there. So I'm going to go through a few things so that you know what's going on with our patent system and what we're doing about it and how you can help also. This person here is and Andre Iancu. He's the new director of the USPTO. He's what we've been meeting for a long time, so he is actually implementing some changes. The past year, we sent, I would say, thousands of signatures on a document that we sent to him asking for changes. And he listened. And then when we all went to Washington, D.C., he met with us, and he listened. He listened to the grassroots inventor, because he understands. He's from Russia. He came here as a boy. So he knows the power of our country, and he's very proud of what he's doing now to make changes in our patent system that need to make change. So he's the strongest thing that's happened to us in a while. We're very happy that he's in there. He's fighting it all at all times. Wait a second, I kind of went through a lot of this. Here's some of the meetings that we had. Why don't I go ahead while Alex is doing that? For those of you that don't know Alex, Alex is a patent agent. And who knows the difference between a patent agent and a patent attorney? How about you?
The attorney has a lot of duties, whereas the agent has special training but not a lot.
Right. So they have a lot of the same training, almost identical training, other than a patent agent can't go in and litigate.
So, strictly speaking, the difference between patent agents and patent attorneys are, in order to sit for an exam called the patent bar, you have to have what they call a technical qualification. That boils down to an engineering or a hard sciences degree. If you're really interested, you can find the list on the USPTO's website. But both your agents and your attorneys have that technical qualification, and they have passed the patent bar. The difference between the agent and the attorney is the attorney also has a law degree and has passed the bar and can practice law in one of the 50 states.
Dang, that was good.
She's looking for a special presentation.
Okay,
She's looking for a special thing she did
so
today.
Alex is patent agent, and he's kind of a rock star. He has really done a lot for this organization. Several years ago, Alex stood up at one of the open door meetings and introduced himself and said, "I would like to speak for your organization someday." And I said, "Well, that's great, but we need to get to know you, because our speakers, people rely on us getting good speakers and speakers, that we believe in and all that." So he said, "Well, Alex, why don't you just hang around, come to some of the meetings?" And you know what? He came to our meetings and he offered so much and taught people so much that I thought, this is a guy that really gives it forward. And he truly is. So as the years progressed, we invited him to get on our board of directors. And so he's been on our board for quite a few years now and adds so much to our organization. And Alex will speak for us a couple times a year. More if we can get it.
Usually one time, but that's enough. They only hear me one time a year.
There's quite a few of our members that have gotten or tried to get patents, and it didn't work out for them. And then they go to Alex, and Alex figures out how to get your product protected. So he's extremely good at that. We call him our rock star because he does very good at that. We trust him totally, and a lot of our members have used him. So he is actually our real speaker tonight. So with that,
thank you. Well, thank you, Laura. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. And I also wanted to mention that. So I'm not just a patent agent. I'm also an inventor. So before I started my own business, I worked with W.L. Gore and Associates, and I was early on in my career there. I was an inventor and invented all kind of stuff with that Gore-Tex material. And so I'm listed on more than 20 U.S. patents, but they're all, unfortunately, assigned to Gore, so I didn't reap any of the monetary benefits from that. So, anyway, yeah, from that experience being an inventor, that's how I turned into wanting to become a patent agent, and then started helping other people with their patents. So tonight we're going to learn a little bit about what is going on with the USPTO and what is patentable. So, as Laura said, there's some efforts to try to get some changes in the USPTO, and I'm going to try to help clarify that a little bit. And if you do have any questions as we go through this, just raise your hand, so it'd probably be better to answer them as we're going through. But first, I wanted to congratulate Mr. Hebert. He's a member of the IAA group, and he just had his patent issued, and it's for a fish culling clip. So a fish culling clip is something you use to grab onto the lips of a fish and weigh it. So anybody who's a sports fisherman that has been in any, tournaments, they have to use a fish culling device to weigh the fish quickly as they can. And so his device is a self-tightening clip. So when you pull on it, it expands these two cantilevers here and grips the the lip of the fish, and so they don't slip out. So I guess a big problem with the other ones is they're clamps, and they just have a set force, whereas this one, it kind of holds it on snugly, and if the fish jiggles, they don't fall out. It holds them even tighter if they jiggle. So he just got that one allowed, so he's pretty excited about it. And also I wanted to mention that Doug Massey, he's another member, he's sitting right here, he just got his patent allowed, and it should issue in the next couple weeks to a month. So congratulations. You've probably seen him talk about his invention, but it's a flotation device, and
I don't like Abraham Lincoln.
That's right.
They got something in common with Abraham Lincoln.
But his is really, really great because it has cup holders that you can use in many different variety of positions. So it's I was pretty excited to get that one through for you.
Thanks for your help.
Yep. Okay, so what's going on with the USPTO? That's what we're going to talk about first. And then we're going to talk about what is a patent, because whenever I get a chance to speak to inventors, especially individual inventors, I like to make sure you understand what a patent really is before we get into the different types and all that sort of thing. So, and we'll also talk about the relatively recent ruling by the Supreme Court on a patent case, that has changed the interpretation of what abstract art is as it relates to software patents. So I'm trying to help explain that in a little bit more detail. So there's a number of bills that are being pushed in Congress now, as Laura mentioned, and they are, and here's the number of it if you want to look it up. I think she just handed out this paper, right? So you have that. So some of the things that they're going to try to make some changes to are, one, the Patent Trials and Appeal Board, PTAB, the choice of venue, expedited judicial proceedings, restoring injunctive relief, and recovery of legal, I lost out of L there, fees. So before we get into those different points of this bill, has anybody ever heard of a patent troll? Yeah? Okay. So they're pretty ugly, but what they are really is they're a company that obtains the rights to a bunch of patents. Typically, they have like hundreds of patents. And they have people that scour through these patents to look for claims that they think somebody is infringing. And then they go out and they sue them. And they try to get them to pay them money to license that claim. So, and they have no intention of actually making the product. They just get rights to all these patents, and then they try to get some money by being a pain to somebody who's actually making a product and selling it. So they have that's why they have the name troll, because they're not seen in the highest regard. So to explain that a little bit more, see, there's a company making a product. They're happy going along. And lo and behold, here comes this patent troll, and they have all these patents. They scour through them. They find one. They say, hey, your product is infringing this patent claim. So either pay up, or we're going to take you to court, and it's going to cost you $1 million to go to court. So why don't you just pay us, 5% on every one you sell. So, or stop making the product. There is a patent user right to make somebody cease and desist making the product. So they're kind of in a pinch, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to pay up the money. So that's why patent trolls are not nice people. So the Patent Trial and Appeal Board is an administrative law body of the USPTO, which decides issues of patentability. And it was formed back in 2012, and I think in part to help give companies some sort of a way to combat these trolls. And prior to this, it was called the Board of Patent Appeals and Interferences, because before this date, the U.S. was first to file, first to invent, and it changed to first to file. And so interferences means figuring out who was really the first to invent the product and who's going to get the patent if there's a dispute on first to invent. So that's all gone away. So they replaced that with this means to do what's called an ex parte re-examination, or third-party re-examination, to say. So what that means is, so say in this case, a re-examination allows any person to file a request for a re-examination of a patent. So if a patrol comes after you for an infringement kind of situation, if you think their patent is kind of bogus and it shouldn't have been allowed, you can go to the PTAB, and for a pretty low fee, $12,000, that's the fee you pay to the patent office, you can hopefully get that patent thrown out and make it invalid, or that way you don't have to pay them any money. So you can see how the PTAB, from a patent troll standpoint, is really good, because you don't have to go to court. You can just file this thing with the patent office. It can be handled all through the patent office, and you can say that patent's bogus because it got allowed, but they didn't consider all this prior art, and get this troll away from me. But the problem is, now there are situations where people have a patent and they're making a product, and infringers can use the PTAB to try to invalidate somebody's patent who's actually making a product. So it's kind of been flip-flopped. So hopefully this makes sense. But anyway, the procedure for the PTAB is you file it, and then the patent owner has 2 months from the date of them accepting the re-examination, and you can file a statement as to why you think that your patent should still be valid and their arguments are bogus, and then the USPTO makes a decision, and that's what costs $12,000. So then, if you don't agree with the decision, then you can petition to the Patent Trial and Appeals Board, right? And then it gets more expensive, because then it's more like a trial within the USPTO. Okay? So the flip-flop situation is, you're a patent holder, and you're manufacturing your product. This is like a bunch of balloons, right? He's a relatively small guy. He has a patent. He's making his bunch of balloons. And then this big toy company's like, they're making a lot of money with a bunch of balloons. So let's see what we can do. Let's just infringe it. So they infringe it, and then what happened is he sued them in court, and it was found that they were infringing. And they're like, you got to pay up. So what did this big toy company do? They said, well, we'll try to invalidate his patent through the PTAB. So they found some sort of minor issue with his claim, and they filed the re-examination request, and his patent was deemed invalid. So that's the problem, that the PTAB is used by infringers to invalidate people who are actually manufacturing a product.
With that, actually, what's happened with Josh, I don't know, do you guys know Bunch of Balloons? Do you know what that is? You can Google it. It's huge. It's probably the hottest selling toy in America. And what happens is, one of the reasons why we're really active is, if you get really successful, now you're a target by these big companies. And
right.
These big companies have figured out how to do efficient infringing. And it's easier for them to infringe on your product and just, run you down through court. You can't afford, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars and teams of lawyers. And so the individual inventor doesn't have those kind of resources. So they run you, into court and run you out of money. And that's what happened, with, they thought what would happen with Josh.
Yeah.
But they actually picked on somebody with one heck of a backbone.
And he was making a lot of money.
And yeah, I think his product grossed like $600 million.
Yeah.
So what did Josh do? He hired 17 teams of lawyers, 17 law firms across the country, and he's been fighting them for 5 years. So what happens? And he's winning. And that's actually, Josh is the one that started this whole kind of movement of getting all the inventors across the country together to start lobbying, in Congress, and start meeting, and he's kind of the spearhead of all this. His lawyers told him, Josh, you got hundreds of millions of dollars, he's a father of 8, just enjoy your family, your house is paid off, and kids can go to college, and just, enjoy it, because you're in for one heck of a fight. And, he did the right thing. He said, no, I'm going to show my kids, that what our country is about, and we're taking back control, and it's working. It's working. Because of him, we're moving the needle. So, like, when we're talking about some of these scary things, go ahead and move forward with your products, because we are moving the needle. It will happen, and now we have enough, I think, exposure that if that happens again, you've got all the inventors associations across the country working for you and helping you out and bringing this to the media. Yeah, that's another part, but I don't want to take your time. We can talk about that afterwards too.
Sure. Yeah, and so I think Josh's patent was thrown out on what's called an indefinite rejection, which means that his claim was held to be indefinite, which means he didn't clearly define the scope of his claim because he used the word substantially filled in the claim to describe the balloon being substantially filled with water. And so I think the tribunal at the PTAB said, well, that doesn't really, we don't know what that means. So so that's really, to me, I think what they need to do is change, before a case is accepted into the reexamination, there has to be a substantial reason for questioning patentability, right? And so I think they could raise that bar a bit higher before they accept it, and that would really help a lot of these situations. But yeah, it was unfortunate for him.
What's Josh's last name?
Malone.
Yeah.
What he did was he made a way of filling, I think, like 100 water balloons within 30 seconds all at once, and they're self-tying. Kids love it.
Yeah, they're on little straws, and it has a little adapter for the hose. You put it on, fill it. The water goes through the little straws into the balloons that have a rubber band on them, and they substantially fill up. And then you shake it, and then they all fall off, and they're sealed. The band seals it when it falls off.
One thing that he found about PTAB is what they're doing at PTAB is they are taking each claim of your patent and then just expanding it to the nth degree when they're looking for prior art, and they're just expanding the meaning as far as they can, and that's where it's substantially filled.
Yeah.
He actually won his court case.
Right.
Yeah, and then the company called Telebrands actually then took him to PTAB. Cost that company with $20,000 or something like that, between $15,000 and $25,000. It's nothing to a big company like that.
Okay.
Took him to PTAB, and now PTAB invalidated the claims in his patent.
What was the name of the documentary again?
It's called Invalidated, and I was going to mention this at the end, but I'll mention it actually several times, and if you want to mention it too, because we really want everybody to watch it. It's you can go to Amazon. If you're an Amazon Prime member, it's free. If you're not, I think it's like $2, $4, something like that. But it's called Invalidated: The Shredding of the U.S. Patent System. So if you just go onto Amazon, you put in there Invalidated, the movie, you'll find it. And it's about 50 minutes long. So pop some popcorn, put on your warm fuzzy slippers, and sit back and get educated. It's really quite interesting.
Yes.
Are the patent controls limited by the national borders at all? Like, so is there companies like internationally who end up maybe going after the US or vice versa?
Well, patents have the jurisdiction within a particular country, and so they would have to be they'd have to go after each company and patents within that particular country. So there's no worldwide patent. So I don't know if that answers your question, but any sort of patent litigation is done country by country. Right? So you can get your patent invalidated in the U.S., but if you have it over in, say, Germany, and it would still be deemed valid over there unless somebody did something similar to try to invalidate it in that country.
Or could like a U.S. company invalidate a patent in Germany, for instance?
I don't know what the procedures are in Germany for that, but or here, yeah. It says any person can. For a third-party examination, anybody can do it. Yeah. And I've had experience with the third-party examination one time. One of the patents that I had issued for a client, a competitor filed a third-party re-examination request, and it got accepted into the system. And they've used 4 or 5 different prior art that wasn't considered during the examination of the case, and said it would have been obvious to combine these and to arrive at your invention. But then I got the chance within that 2 months to write the owner's response and explain that I thought that was a bad argument and it should be valid because it wouldn't be obvious because it's all these reasons. But luckily we won. So their patent was held up. And if it is held up after a third-party reexamination, typically that means it's a pretty strong patent. That means because it's been issued and it's been through a reexamination and it's still held up, it really makes it a strong patent. Yeah.
How long did that process take, the reexamination and all finding and
Probably about 6 months.
Oh, that fast.
That's just a third-party reexamination. It did not get appealed to the PTAB, to where it actually, you can appeal that decision, that first iteration. You can then appeal that, and then it's reviewed by, like I said, it's more like a court trial within USPTO.
So who was doing that at the USPTO? The original examiner or who?
No, it's out of the examiner's hands. It's different people at that point.
It's not PTAB, but it's somebody before PTAB.
Well, PTAB has a lot of different parts to it. Like the Patent Trial and Appeal Board is also like if you get a final rejection on your patent when you're filing and trying to get a patent allowed, you can appeal. And so there's kind of a first level of appeal where it's looked at by people within that particular art unit, and there's a decision, and then you can appeal to the PTAB. And so the PTAB is, again, that's where they would review it, and hopefully these are more experienced people that would then review and determine whether or not your patent should be allowed or still rejected.
And your process didn't get to PTAB, it was somewhere below.
It was just a third-party reexamination, which is kind of the first step, yeah, to try to get something. They were trying to get it validated because they wanted to sell that product. And so that's really the first step you need to take as a third party. But if it's your patent and you're trying to get your patent allowed within the patent office, you can also end up appealing, and it can eventually be reviewed by that same system.
So in your opinion, was that company trying to infringe, or did they have a product similar? Or what was going on there?
They wanted to infringe, yeah.
They wanted to infringe?
Yeah. And they had a bone to pick with my client. So, but it didn't work. Okay. So, so some of these other things that are on your sheet there, I'll kind of just briefly go over them. You can kind of read this, but choice of venue is kind of a big deal. There is a ruling that if you sue for infringement, it has to be held at a court of the place of the crime, which would be the confuser, which would be the infringer's place of business, because they're the ones that are committing the crime. So it means like if you're making a product, like in Josh's case, if there's 3 different infringers, you have to sue them in their states. So say you're here in Arizona and they're in Washington and Texas, it's a burden on you because you have to go to all these places to fight to show that they're infringing. So that's one of the things that's in this bill is to try to get that changed so that it could be held at the place in who holds the patent, right? Because it make it a lot less expensive for them. Expedited judicial proceedings. I mean, this is really just an attempt to try to get quicker rulings, because if you do go into the court system to try to say, hey, you're infringing, it can take a very, very long time and can be drug out and cost just tons of money. So they typically say if it's more than, if your business is a couple $1 million or less, it really isn't going to be any good to try to sue for infringement because it's going to cost you that much through the court proceedings. So they're trying to get some sort of expedited court, judicial review in these infringement cases. So restore injunctive relief. So injunctive relief means make the infringer stop infringing. So as Laura mentioned in her original slides there, a patent gives you the right to prevent others from making, using, selling, or importing your claimed invention. And so that's what that means. You can make them stop. And so what has happened over the years is that instead of courts ruling that they have to stop, they say, well, you can still do it, but you got to pay them so much money, like a royalty, if you're going to continue to do this, which really isn't what the statute originally said. but more and more courts are going to this kind of ruling. Now, I mentioned I used to work for W.L. Gordon Associates, and they had one of the longest, it was actually an interference proceeding, and then it turned into an infringement case, but they make a product that saves people's lives, and so they did not give the winner of the case injunctive relief because they wanted Gordon to continue to make this product because it's helping people save lives. So in some cases I can see why they want to do that, but it seems like the courts are, like I said, leaning more towards just making some sort of penalty or ongoing penalty if they continue to infringe and make the product. Yeah.
Is there a happy medium where it's may as opposed to shall?
What do you mean, may or shall?
Meaning that that they may find injunctive relief. So that depending on the situation, it may be awarded, it may not, or as opposed to requiring injunctive relief.
Well, this next slide I'll explain that. Here's the ruling. So under the Supreme Court ruling, the court ruled that to merit injunction, a patent holder must show that they've suffered irreparable harm, any sort of legal remedy would be inadequate, and the balance of hardships lies in their favor, and the public interest weighs in the favor of granting the injunction. So,
the public interest in.
Yeah. So these are kind of the considerations that these courts are supposed to be using to decide whether or not make them stop or make them pay, right? So they're looking for some sort of reconsideration of that. I mean, it should be some sort of really, like I said, a life-saving product. I can see where they'd say, okay, but like for a bunch of balloons, I don't care how much money they've invested in making the product, they should have to stop. That's what the rule says. So, yeah, but these are the sort of things that they consider. And recovery of legal fees. So I guess if you're going to sue somebody for infringement and they are found to be an infringer, then they should. What the bill is proposing is that the infringer also has to pay your legal fees. So it would maybe be another deterrent to prevent somebody from, infringing or willfully infringing. Okay, any more questions kind of about that whole section? I'll talk about the abstract ideas in a little bit, but in terms of the PTAB and some of the bill considerations, any other questions about that? Good. Okay. So let's get into what is a patent. So a patent is a government-approved 20-year right to exclude, that's what we were just talking about, others from making, using, selling, or importing the claimed invention in exchange for providing the public with a full disclosure of how to practice the invention. And that public disclosure is your patent application. So you have to write an application that would enable somebody to read your patent and then go out and make the product that you have claimed, right? Okay. So, but a patent does not give you the right to make or use the article. So that's a big confusing point for a lot of people. It gives you the right to exclude others from doing it, but it doesn't give you the right. So if you get awarded a patent, you could still be infringing somebody else's patent. So that's the term is called, you could be dominated. So you can improve somebody's product. Say somebody has a widget, and you add a new feature to the widget, it makes it way better. You could get your patent awarded if that new feature was new and non-obvious. So yeah, you get this patent, but the other company with the original widget could also have a patent on the widget that isn't expired and still is valid, and so you can't make the widget to add the new feature. See what I mean? So that's a situation where you can get a patent, but you are dominated by somebody else's broader claim. Yes?
You can add a widget to their product, you just couldn't make the widget and their product, right? So
Well, I'm saying if it's an improvement of their widget, you'd have to make their widget to put your improvement on it. And you are not allowed to make, they could exclude you from making their widget. Right?
So then you'd have to buy their widget
Well,
if it works that way.
well, you could buy it and do that. You have to get a license from them. You have to say, hey,
Oh, yeah.
how about I let you make this improvement and you let me make it too, and we'll kind of both make it and sell it. Or the other option is to wait until their patent expires, and then they no longer have the broad claim. It's expired now, And so now you can make the improvement, right?
But if you had a new shoelace, you invented a new shoelace to work on somebody else's shoes they've patented.
Right.
Can you do that, or is that infringing on them because you're using their new idea?
Well, if your shoelace has to have that particular shoe and maybe the shoe hole configuration for it to work, then yeah, you'd be bound by using that particular shoe. And if they have a patent on that shoe with a particular shoe hole lace arrangement, then yeah, you'd be kind of in a pickle.
So if you had it to work on everybody's shoes.
Working on everybody's shoes, it wouldn't matter because shoes are, there's no patent on a general shoe anymore. I mean, yeah.
I have a patent that was issued in, I think, 1997.
Uh-huh.
And I licensed it and then walked away from it. Years went by, whatever happened. Anyway, I stopped paying the fees.
Uh-huh.
So it's expired, but it's not past the 20-year mark. So I've seen, as I've gone in and looked at it, I've seen a lot of people reference it. I've seen products like it, but they can't get that very same patent. Like they can't, the way the positioning of this mat is, if there's some attachments, some anchors. So but there's one I think could be totally infringing on it. But I don't know. My curiosity is if you stop paying the fees, you know, people still can't get a patent and
That's
go
right.
out there and have it protected until it expires.
Well, because
But you can't do anything about it if you stop paying the fees. You're screwed, right?
well, you can revive it.
You can?
Yeah, within 2 years of it going abandoned. And you can do it after that, but you have to have a pretty extreme circumstance. And it has to be unintentional abandonment. You have to sign a form. I didn't mean for it to go abandoned. I forgot. Stuff like that.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
can.
Within 2 years. And they don't ask any questions within 2 years.
Longer than that.
It's been, that's what I'm thinking. It's been longer than that, so it has to be pretty extreme circumstances, yeah.
I'm a little confused. I only have 29 patents.
Very good.
So I don't understand that phrase does not give you the right to use or sell. You always have the right to use or sell, even if it's not patented. It may be that other people will also have the right.
I see what you mean. You can go ahead and make and sell whatever you want, but you could be sued. Maybe that's what I should say.
Exclusive.
A patent gives you the right to do these to prevent other people from doing it, but if you make it yourself, you could be sued. How about that? Somebody else could tell you to stop doing that. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So when you come up, like you're going through the whole application process, and you have this original idea, and so you
Right.
follow through with your patent. Nobody in the patent office is looking to say, oh, that's part of the bigger, like that's already part of the widget. Like you said, you.
Oh yeah. I mean, they should like if your patent application describes an improvement of somebody else's product, and they also have a patent on it, they should definitely they should find that patent when they do their patent prior art search.
Because otherwise you're kind of being set up for failure because you're relying on the patent office to say, yes, I have an original idea, and then you start moving forward.
All right, but that new improvement has to be new and non-obvious over the earlier one. So they should be finding that art or that prior art since it's so close to what you're doing, definitely, and that should be considered. And if it gets allowed, then it's a novel and non-obvious improvement over that.
Real quick, so prior art is really around anything that's already patented.
Prior art is any patent filed before yours, any public disclosure before you filed,
But
in this
in the world
country,
of
in any
patents,
country in the world,
Someone
anywhere.
never got a patent or patent pending on the product, that's not considered prior art.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's prior art. Like I said, it's somebody filed before you.
Filed. What if someone never filed for their idea?
If it wasn't a public disclosure, I mean, public disclosure could be a presentation at a symposium. It could be a paper filed at a university in Wichita, Kansas. Is it likely that the USPTO is going to find that? Probably not. But
So they disclose to the public, but they never file a patent or patent
yeah,
pending.
it happens all the time.
It's still considered prior art.
Yeah, it's still considered prior art. So in that PTAB review, say say you want to invalidate somebody's patent, and you find a piece of prior art that's exactly what their product is, but the patent office didn't consider it when they examined the application, that's a pretty easy situation where you can get that patent invalidated. So that's why it's really important, I should have said this earlier, it's really important to do a very thorough prior art search, and it's very important to make sure you have a well-written patent and well-written claims. Otherwise, like in Josh's case, I mean, whoever wrote his patent didn't really, because you should know you should define what substantially means, at least in the application, if you use that term. I mean, anybody who's good at writing patents should know that. Then his patent would have held up. So, yeah.
What about abandoned patents? Is that also considered prior art?
It is. Yeah.
So mine's abandoned.
Yeah, it's prior art to anybody else who's going to file on something like yours. Right. Yeah.
So it's every patent that's written that I read all references prior art.
They do, yeah.
So technically, from what you're saying, even though they're original products, the balloon guy, for example,
Right.
in his patent, it probably referenced prior art. So did he have to license from the prior art
No.
people? Because that's what I'm understanding that you're.
Only if he would be dominated. So you can have a new patent, right, or a new product, and you might not be dominated by anybody else out there. There might not be any other patents out there that would prevent you, or where they could sue you for making it. It's called freedom to practice analysis.
I don't know if there's a patent on a balloon, but if there were,
No.
then he would be nominated by the balloon.
That's right. Yeah, if there were, yeah, you're right. But straws, balloons, rubber bands. All his components are totally known. Like the little thing you screw on the faucet, have been around for years, right? Little straws, little rubber bands, all been around forever. So he just combined them in a unique way. So he's good.
So even though he combined them in a unique way, I would bet dollars to donuts that when he wrote it, it was an improvement on these other things.
Maybe, but I wouldn't write it as an improvement. It would just be a new device. Yeah.
Because it seems like they always say an improvement on. That's one thing I've noticed.
Well, they actually changed the rule for the title. You're not supposed to put improvement of anything in the title, but a lot of people still write improvement, but I don't do that. I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's keep moving along here. So, again, just to kind of bring this point home, a patent is a sword. It gives you the ability to go out and say, hey, stop doing that. Stab you with my sword if you keep making that product. It's not. It doesn't protect you necessarily. It does protect your idea. So the important thing, when people say, are you protected, really what you should be thinking is my idea protected because I filed my patent? But then once your patent issues, it's a sword. And you can go out and you can say, hey, stop doing that. Right? So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So now we're getting into what is a patentable invention. There are two criteria for patents. They must be directed to one of the four statutory categories, which we'll get into. And they must not be wholly directed to subject matter encompassing a judicial recognized exception as defined below. Oh, where'd he go? I lost that part of it. But let's get into the four categories. So the four categories are a process, so an act or a series of acts or steps that will modify a material. And so you can see here is a process line, it's running material. So it's a mode of treatment of certain materials to produce a given result. So your patent could be a process of making something. It could be a machine. So it could be a concrete thing consisting of parts or of certain devices and combinations of devices and how they work together. So a machine I typically think of as having multiple parts that interact in some way to produce some sort of function. Right? So you have a camera, a blender. It could be a manufacture, which is just an article produced from raw material. So like a bunch of balloons would be manufactured, right? Shoe grader. Or it could be a composition of matter, just a new kind of composition of material. So it could be like the coating on the sunglasses to make them UV protectant. Could be some sort of new alloy for a screwdriver. Could be a drug. Okay? So getting back into this, so for something to be patentable, it has to fit into this one of those 4 categories, and it has to be new and useful, or a useful improvement. So new and useful are 2 of the classifications. Useful is really a low bar to pass. I've seen patents for some pretty silly things. In fact, I usually use an example. There was a patent for a little teeny basket for, I think, for peanuts or something. And somehow that's really old, but it got allowed. I don't know how useful that is, but new relates to prior art, and so we'll describe that a little bit more. So currently, the U.S. is working under the first inventor to file system. So that happened back with the America Invents Act back in 2013, and so it means you have to file quickly, right? And you have to be the inventor. I'm not going to go into all that, but if you get the idea from somebody else and you file on it, and they have documentation to show that they disclose that to you, then you're not truly the inventor, and so you would not get the patent, right? You still have to be the inventor, the original inventor, but you have to be the first to file. So getting to new. So novelty or prior art, a person shall be entitled to a patent unless the claimed invention was patented, described in a printed publication, or in public use, on sale, or otherwise available to the public before the filing date of the invention. So that means any prior disclosure to you filing is going to prevent you from getting your patent, right? Unless it's your own public disclosure. Now, this is really weird. The U.S. has a rule that you have 1 year from the date of public disclosure to file in the U.S., but if you do publicly disclose it, you basically throw out your rights to file anywhere else in the world. Pretty much every other country doesn't uphold to that 1 year from public disclosure to file rule. So general rule of thumb is don't publicly disclose it, file your patent first, so you can maintain rights to file internationally as well. Okay, claim invention was described in patent issued or filed by another inventor and was effectively filed before the effective filing date of the claim invention. Okay, same thing. All right. So again, it's important that you file very quickly, and don't tell anybody before you file. So some misconceptions about what this means. Okay, it's not on the market, so I should be able to get a patent. So and I have a lot of people come to me and say, I haven't seen it out there, but you really need to have somebody who knows how to do a patent prior art search to do a search, because there's a lot of stuff in the patent prior art that you probably are not aware of. And so it's really important to make sure you do a prior art search for it first. Okay, the prior art reference that is really similar to my invention is expired, so I should be able to get a patent. I think somebody was asking this question tonight. It doesn't matter if the patent never got issued. It could just be a publication. Never got issued. It could be from the 1849, like Abraham Lincoln or whatever it was. It doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter where it is in the country or around the world. It could be a patent from Sweden from the 1920s that was similar to your invention that could be used to throw out your patent application. So anywhere in the world, any public disclosure is prior art. The prior art reference described my invention, but they did not claim it, so I should be able to get the patent. So I've had this question a number of times. Like, oh, well, it's very similar to my invention, but they didn't actually claim it, so maybe I can get a claim on it. It's not true. Any part of the patent, any part of the publication is prior art and will be used against your claims. Okay. Someone else has a patent for my invention in Germany, but not in the U.S., so I should be able to get a patent in the U.S. What's the answer to that? No. No, doesn't matter. So I do get that question periodically. I've had my website up for a couple of years, but my product has not been sold yet, so I should be able to get a patent. What's the answer on that? No. No. Again, if it's only been 1 year, you still could do it in the U.S., but you can't file internationally.
Excuse me, Alex?
Yes.
Back to the someone else has a patent for my invention in Germany.
Yeah.
So if you have a patent here in the U.S., can somebody else get a patent in Germany?
No. Everybody upholds by the same kind of rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. There can be no disclosure of your invention anywhere in the world to your to your patent filing. This is why patent part search is so important, because again, like a patent from over here in Australia in 1901 can be used against you. Okay, so getting back to this. So whoever invents or discovers a new useful process machine should be entitled to a patent under this title. So there's another sort of part to this. It's non-obvious, right? And so this is a rejection, 103 rejection from the Patent Office. And they'll say, well, we didn't find a reference that describes exactly what your invention is, but we found these two references. You know, here's patent A and patent B. This one has elements, you know, A, B, and C of your invention, and this one has elements C and D of your invention. So, you know, if you combine them, that's what your invention is. So it would be obvious to combine these two references to arrive at your invention. And this is the rejection that you get a lot of times from the Patent Office. And you have to, there used to be some criteria you could use to overcome it, but now it's a lot more subjective because, again, there was a Supreme Court ruling, it was like back in 2006, that changed the interpretation of non-obviousness. So really what you have to do is describe why it would not be obvious, like if there's some sort of difficulty in combining the components, that would be good. Or if people have tried it in the past and they failed, that would be a good argument. There's a number of different arguments you can use. But again, that's another criteria. You can't just combine two things, you know, put a cup holder on something and make it patentable. Although Doug Massey did.
Got to invert it.
He did. He put it on a different way. It's funny. Okay, so yeah, this is back in 2007. They kind of changed the ruling here. It used to be it had to be two references, and they had to show all the components. But the Supreme Court keeps making problems for the Patent Office. But they made it much more subjective, and so now you can get a rejection from the Patent Office, and they'll just say Patent A has some of the components of your invention, and those other components, it would be obvious to somebody skilled in the art to combine them, put them on there. So we're going to reject it, and we're only going to reference one patent. So that's how kind of silly it can be, but that happens. Okay, so my invention is for a different market, so it should be patentable. Only if it would be really a stretch to use that same product in a different market. Otherwise, it would be seen as obvious. My invention is a different color or size, so it should be patentable. Now, that's going to be just a design choice, so that's not going to help you overcome obviousness. My invention was made out of a different material, so it should be patentable. Again, only in rare situations would a change of material make something non-obvious over prior art that used a different material. Okay. So exceptions to the four categories. So we talk about the machine, process, manufacturer, composition of matter, those four categories. So what doesn't fall within those four categories? So there's laws of nature. You can't patent laws of nature, equations, natural phenomenon, and abstract ideas. This whole abstract idea thing is what the Supreme Court ruled on recently that has really thrown the Patent Office kind of in a whirl here. Oh, it's whirling around, yes. Okay, so software patents and abstract ideas. So back in 2014, there was this lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court, and the issue was whether or not certain claims about the computer-implemented electronic escrow service for facilitating financial transaction was an abstract idea and ineligible for patent protection. And it was held to be invalid. And so whenever the Supreme Court makes a ruling on a patent case, the Patent Office says, okay, so now how are we going to kind of change our interpretations based on that ruling? And so, what's that?
Retroactively, they'll do this?
No, it's going forward. But in light of this ruling, if somebody were to try to invalidate a patent that you had issued earlier, it would be examined or considered under these new interpretations. So people who have software patents prior to this date, they're probably not trying to sue for infringement right now because the the infringer could probably pretty easily invalidate their patent. Okay, so it's really all about these kind of algorithms within a computer that do certain things that is considered now abstract. So a lot of apps on your computer, and I'm going to try to give you some examples of that. Okay, so computer programs that do no more than automate functions that can be done by hand, you can't get a patent on that anymore. So under this new rule, and it might change, and some of the bills that are in front of Congress are trying to get this interpretation to change. So to avoid this sort of rejection, the claim may describe a computer program that interfaces with some tangible physical element to change, say, the physical element. So if you have some sort of, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but if the software is just part of a system and you have hardware components, that probably is still eligible and not seen as abstract ideas. Okay, so some of the things that are, I'm sorry?
Would that kind of result in just less patent filings of software then at that point?
There's a lot less right now. And, well, there's a lot of strategies. I'm going to talk about a case that I have for a client. There's a lot of people who are filing patents on software, but then like trying to delay them as long as possible before they're examined, because they're hoping this will change, right? So some of the general concepts that are considered ineligible subject matter are basic economic practices theories, basic legal theories. So again, any sort of algorithms or equations that you would put on a computer would be, or even on a computer, would not be considered patentable. Mental activities, interpersonal relationships, interactions with relationships, teaching concepts, human behavior. I've had people try to get patents on exercise routines. So that's just, that's like, that's just instructions that people follow. That's not going to be patentable. Instructing how business should be conducted. So yeah, business model type patents are really being scrutinized right now as being abstract. Yes.
What about, as an example, you came up with a software program to try and predict a good stock, the stock market, or a general trend in the stock market? Is that patentable?
Why not? Yeah. So pretty much anytime you and a keyboard or input to the computer is not considered hardware. So like I've had patents on one of my clients before this ruling came out was on a college school selection program where they input different criteria and it has these weighted sorts of bars and it kind of spits out which schools meet your criteria the best. That's now, it was deemed not patentable under 101, under this Alice CLS bank thing. Yeah.
There's the woman, and I feel horribly, I can't remember her name, but she works at Qualcomm and she wrote the code that connects our phones to the internet.
Right.
Would something like that be patentable?
Well, maybe, because if it, and I'll get into some of the things that still are. Let me get into those. So if it's internal to the computer and it makes the computer function better, then that is still patentable, right? So, so a claim to software that uses a user interface to input data, manipulates this data, and then displays the information back to the user, like that's not going to be patentable. So again, all your apps that you have on your phone, most of them, they probably are not patentable. So here's an example I had for a client. It was the guy in Sedona I worked with, and it was a personality designer system for a detachably attachable remote audio object. And that detachably attachable is a word that us patent people love to use. Detachably attachable. So anyway, we filed this back in 2012 before that ruling, and luckily it got allowed right before the patent office was really figuring out what's going on with this whole new Supreme Court ruling. So we got it allowed, but he wanted to get broader claims to, and let me show it to you first. So this was a user input, and you slide these bars around, and it changes the type of, so say you have your Siri, or you have these things you talk, what's the Apple one, is it Siri?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could, for example, you can make this be like Siri. You can say, all right, I want my Siri to be sarcastic, and I want it to talk more often and bug me more, or I want it to, I don't know. You could just pick all these different criteria, and you could have a personalized Siri. So that's kind of what his concept was, but it was really for any sort of remote audio object. But anyway, it got allowed, so he's pretty excited about that. But we're going for some broader claims, and it's basically the same sort of patent, but they rejected it under this 101 abstract idea thing, because it's after they figured out how to interpret the Supreme Court ruling. They're like, oh, well, this is really just inputting stuff, and there's algorithm, and it changes the selection of a number of criteria of phrases that it could come back with. So anyway, so we're trying to extend this out as long as we can. We filed a continuation of part, and we're trying to, hopefully they'll change the rules before it gets examined again. So anyway, that's just how frustrating it is for people who work in this industry. So another thing you can do, a claim to software that controls an apparatus such as a process machine. Like say, for example, it's a software, and then I did one for a guy on electric arc furnace, and it changes conditions to keep stuff within a certain condition. A big part of it was the algorithm in the claim, but it also interfaced with that machine, and so that was deemed liable. Or maybe it includes interface with a sensor, some other hardware component. So maybe you have some sort of sensor that can detect the person, and then it does something with the display. That could still be patentable. Or if it's software that improves the functionality of the computer itself. So if it's really internal software that makes the computer more efficient, maybe like you're saying, that helps it connect more quickly or with less errors, that would still probably be patentable. Or, and this is the weird one. You can read on blogs like what things might now be patentable under this new rule. So a claim to software that provides new or expanded functionality of the computer. So I'm not sure what that means, but if you have the software that makes computers do something new that it never could do before, maybe that's patentable. It's kind of vague. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but I haven't had that case yet. Okay. So I know, who has a software patent that they're thinking about filing? Anybody? No? Okay, good. I spent way too much time on that then. Okay, let's just get into types of patents. So there's utility patent. That's the majority of patents that are filed. Then there's a design patent, a plant, and a provisional. And a provisional is a temporary patent for a utility. There is no provisional for the design patent. I don't think there's a provisional for plant, but I never do plant patents, although I did have a guy call me recently. Okay, so types of patents. Utility is any new and useful process, machine, manufacture, composition of matter, or any new improvement thereof. So that's a general utility. And these patents have drawings with little numbers, all different features. And it could be an improvement. So here's a mousetrap. You have cheese on there. A big problem with a lot of mousetraps is that they're messy, right? So, the mouse goes there and gets whacked by this, and it's gross, right? So you can improve it. So you have to touch the mouse, remove it. So there's blood, guts everywhere. I could have put a dead mouse on it. Okay. So maybe this invention it makes it neater. There's a little bag that goes around it. The mouse has to go inside there, and then it's all nice. You just take the bag and you throw the mouse out. So that would be an improvement patent on the mousetrap. Okay, and that was allowed, that patent. Okay. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be disqualified because it would be obvious?
Well, I don't think it's obvious. How would you put a bag on there and have it open enough so there's like a somewhat of a rigid member there that holds it open so the mouse can still get in? So that's not obvious, really. Yeah. Depends on how you write the patent, but I think it's good.
Would you be infringing like on the majority level since you're using still the full mousetrap component and you're just putting a bag over it, which is like just a bag would be kind of like the unique?
Well, this is a great example. If the standard mousetrap was still a valid patent and it wasn't from like the 1910s or whatever, and then this would be a good example of you being dominated. So if somebody had, ABC company had the patent on the mousetrap, and you said, oh, I can make it better, then you have to call them up and say, well, can I license your mousetrap invention or your mousetrap patent so I can make my improvement? Or you could cross-license. Both of you agree that you can make it.
Or just straight out license. You could license your idea to them.
Or you can sell it to them, license it to them. You just sell the whole patent to them. Patents are like property. You can sell it, you can license it, you can say you can come on my property for a little while, for a couple of years, and we'll renegotiate. Think of it like property. Like whether or not people can come in or you can sell it. Yeah.
So the product itself is the bag.
Yeah, it's this bag. Yeah.
Because so you can sell the bag and then it's not really infringing on the trap.
That's right. Well, that's true. You're right. Yeah, you sell the bag.
So it would be a win-win for both.
That's true. If it were coupled to the trap.
Yes.
You're right. Then it would be. You're exactly right. But you're paying attention. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Utility patents. Utility patent can also be a process, which you mentioned earlier. So in this case, it might be a process of making a mousetrap. And then you would say comprising the steps of. And now they always, I leave that out. But so it says providing a rectangular platform, attaching the spring to the lever, attaching a latch. So it describes what you do to make the mousetrap. So that's another type of claim that you can get. So, but whenever you write claims, you want to think about who would infringe. So who would infringe that claim?
Everyone who makes the mousetrap.
That's right. So your competitors. So that's a pretty good claim to have. It's really the best claim to get is the article claim, which is, to just the claim that describes the bag or the mousetrap or whatever it is. If you can get a claim that just describes the article, that's because it's hard to dispute that, okay, I have it in my hand, has all the elements of my claim, you're infringing. But when you get into a process, if they can do it a different way, then maybe they don't infringe. So it's a little bit more of gives them a little bit more wiggle room to get around your patent. Okay, and then you can have a method of using claim. So a method of disposing of a mouse, probably the steps of providing the mousetrap, blah, blah, blah. Rotating the lever up, placing it on there, putting the bait on there, and then waiting for them to come and eat the stuff and getting smacked, right? So who would infringe that claim? Yeah, the user. That probably isn't the best sort of claim to get because it's your customer that's going to be infringing it, right? But there's also what's called contributory infringement. So if you had get this claim allowed, and that's the only claim you get allowed, and a company manufactured the mousetrap and it had instructions on how to set it up, which follow these sort of method of use claims, then you could say, well, you're not literally infringing my patent, but you're contributing to all these people you sell it to infringe. So you could go after them that way, right? It's a little side thing. Okay, now we'll talk about design patents. A design patent is really just one claim. It says the ornamental design for a rockabye animal trap as shown and described. So it doesn't have a bunch of a big body of summary and detailed description. It really just has this front page, description of the figures, and then the figures. So design patent is really short, And in this case, it's a mousetrap with a curved base. And so you can see it's really just curved up there at the front end. And so that's kind of a good example of a design patent because the shape of the design gives it some functionality. I was just speaking with you guys. Your design patent, which you just got allowed, which is good. The shape of your device, your armchair cushion cover, the way where you have the straps and everything, I think is pretty unique. So that's a pretty good example of a good patent, or good article for a design patent. And I think that's it. So that's all I had. So there's utility and design patents, and so we've covered different types of patents, what's patentable, and do you have any other questions?
It used to be people would say, just get a patent pending, and stretch out so nobody knows what you're doing, and then go start selling it. How does that? I mean, I've already got a patent, but how does that fit into?
Well, there's a bunch of different filing strategies. I have a whole different presentation on that. But if you are not sure that you want to disclose it to the public, but you want to see if you can get a patent, you can file in the U.S. only, and you can file what's called a non-publication request. And that means that they won't publish it, because all patents, unless you file this non-publication request, are going to issue 18 months from the earliest priority date. And so if you file only in the U.S. and file this non-publication request, it's not going to publish unless you get a patent awarded. And then you can even determine at that point, did I get good claims? I mean, are these strong claims? If they're not that great, you might say, well, I'm not going to pay the issue fee. I'm just going to let it go abandoned. Still nobody knows about it. Or if you feel like you got good claims, go ahead and pay the issue fee and let it issue as a patent, and then you're in control of whether or not it gets published.
Seems like, and that's been a long time.
Yeah.
I just saw, it was a big thing back then, which was everybody would say, just do patent pending, that way you can go out and sell it, nobody knows what you're doing. So they can't go file a patent because they don't know what you filed. So make a quick hit and, have it be patent pending and something like that. I don't know if that's in.
But you can do that, but it is going to publish. People are going to know what you're doing unless you file a non-publication request.
Okay.
Or you might be thinking, I don't know about the provisionals, provisional.
Yeah, so provisional is, there's a lot of standards for a utility patent. When you file an actual patent, there's tons of rules, and if you don't do it right, they'll object to your line spacing, you didn't have all the numbers, everything, right? But with a provisional, the bar is pretty darn low. You can just write up whatever you want, send it in, and if you're going to do it, have a lot of figures and try to describe every different embodiment you could think of for each of the features and how they could be combined. And then that gives you 1 year. So they don't examine that. So it basically sets your priority date, which means you're first to file, right, for that idea, hopefully. And then as long as you file a real patent or a non-provisional within 1 year, you can claim the benefit back to the filing date of the provisional so that your filing date of your non-provisional is kind of tied to your provisional date. So, but you only get 1 year to do that.
They don't even really look at it, do they?
No.
Comes in, they log in the date.
You have to, if you refer to something, like you say, if you refer to 5 figures and you only have 3, they'll say there's something missing, right? It's got to be something really dumb.
So you would have a provisional patent, which makes it patent pending.
You're patent pending as soon as you file a provisional, yes.
Okay, and then what's the cost usually on that to file that?
Well, it depends on who the filing fee is low.
Okay. To do the provisional is not high, is it?
No, if you're what's called a micro entity, the filing fee is only $70. Okay. Yeah, it's cheap. And so you can send that in yourself. If you work with a patent agent or attorney, it's probably going to be $2,000. Big law firms are probably going to charge you $10,000. Yeah.
From 70 to 10 grand.
That's crazy what they charge. Yeah.
So my attorney says that he can take an ordinary pencil and throw enough claims at it and everything that he could probably get a patent, a piece of paper for it that'll be worthless for the most part. He said there's a lot of people that just collect patents that they can't defend it once it's done.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that? Is that a true statement?
You can put a ton of stuff in there, but if it's all stuff that's not novel, or you're still not going to get a patent. There has to be one structural uniqueness to your patent, and that structural uniqueness or difference between all the prior art, if it's tied to some functional benefit, then you're golden. That's why with your application, I'm thinking that the Y connector that provides two different things that nobody else had before, right? So, it's got to be something structural, typically that's unique.
But you can throw enough claims at something to where they just look at it and go, yeah.
They shouldn't.
So out there, no.
No, the rule is it's got to be new, it's got to be novel, and it's got to be useful. So if you have a pencil, number one, it's not new. I don't care if you use 1,000 words to describe it; it's not new. Right?
So Alex, if I got the utility on my product, is it worth still doing a design, or is it
I think
the uniqueness of it, leash, the safety leash, that kind of stuff?
Well, design for yours would be okay, yeah. But it's past the point where you could really do that because it's over a year since you publicly disclosed it, really. Right. Yeah. But you have a utility patent on, which is better.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't need a design to get utility.
Well, design is for that particular design, and so it's a little bit easier to get around the design patent because you can change some things, and you can have a number of iterations in one design patent. But it's kind of a difficult edge to kind of go down. But again, if the shape of your product really adds some sort of unique benefit, I would do both a utility and a design. Right? Yes.
Can you modify a patent after it's been issued?
No.
Something else?
Oh, after it's been issued?
Yeah.
You can ask for. you can do a reissue within 2 years of it issuing and try to get broader claims, but you're opening it up to examination again, and the whole thing could be thrown out. So you usually don't do reissues. You usually want to file before your patent issues. You file a continuation or continuation in part application, so you still have one pending in the office, so that you can make changes, or you make changes or some additions prior to the first one issuing. You file it, and then you still have one pending. So whenever my clients are seriously going forward with a product to market, it's always good to have one still pending, so that you can maybe write a claim around an infringer if they don't infringe your first set of claims that were allowed. So you can kind of modify things, and you don't have to do that reissue thing. It just gives you a little bit more leeway in what you can do. And once you file a patent, like if you file a non-provisional, you cannot make, once it's filed, that's it. You can't add new matter. You can't go in and say, well, I want to add a new figure, or I had a client recently, they said they wanted me to submit updated figures, but they were totally different. I'm like, well, I can't do that. They're like, well, we want you to anyway. I was like, well, I can't because I got to sign a statement that says there's no new matter, and there's definitely new matter. I'm not going to do it. So,
you have to file a new patent to win the case?
yeah, if it's something new you want to add, you have to file a new, and they're totally separate. And I was just talking to a client last night, and we were going to get his second patent allowed, but he didn't realize that he thought the second patent that we're working on the claims to get in an allowable form, we're going to replace his first patent. I'm like, no. So apparently that's a misconception. If you have a first patent, that's all by itself, right? It's done. And then you file a continuation application, that's a totally separate patent. It does not affect your first patent, right?
Yeah. I got a really quick question.
Yeah.
And it probably it doesn't really have anything to do with us because we're past this, but what is considered public disclosure? I mean, any way that you put it out there to like
Really
your friend
good question.
or your family, or does it have to be?
Yeah. Well, like if you're talking to your family about it, there's I guess a presumed confidentiality, right?
Right.
But I mean, really, right down to the letter of the law, that could still be a public disclosure because you're telling somebody else. I mean, really, public disclosure is in a public forum where the public can see it and they're going to hear it. The general public is.
Okay.
So,
like if you had like a prototype, or if you actual physical, tangible your product, or is it on paper or any? And so from that start date, you have a year to.
That's right. Yeah. So say you have a product and you want to get some feedback, and you go to a parking lot somewhere. I know you did this, and you start showing people, hey, what do you think about this? That's a public disclosure.
Yeah.
Unless you have an NDA.
Unless you get every single person you show to, you get NDA. That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Do that,
Yeah.
or never put it on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you have it on the internet, that's public.
So if you're thinking of an idea and you file a provisional patent,
Right.
and you then have a patent pending, and you then do a market test, and so forth, and then you want to tweak it a little bit based on does the exact description in your provisional patent have to go to your utility patent? Or can that be your tweaking area and then you file a utility patent based on that?
That's a good question. Exactly. So if you have a provisional, and then when you go to file your non-provisional, and then that, say, a 1 year period or 6 month period, doesn't have to be a year.
Right.
You've discovered a bunch of other things you want to include. You can include them in the non-provisional. But if the claims in that non-provisional are to include that new features, and those new features weren't described in the provisional, the priority date for that claim is the filing date of the non-provisional. It's the later date. Okay. So whenever you add new matter, so it's same with a non-provisional that's about ready to issue, and then you're going to file a continuation in part. If you add some new stuff to the non-provisional and file a continuation in part, any claims that are only supported by that disclosure are going to be the second filing date, right? So you get priority date to when you had the supporting disclosure. If that makes sense, right? So basically, what I'm saying, you can have claims in your non-provisional that are supported by the provisional. So the priority date for those claims would be the provisional filing date. Then you can have claims to the provisional plus the new features, But the priority date for those is the filing date of the non-provisional.
But the old features that was originally with the provisional would be protected by the first date.
That's right.
Only
Yeah.
the addition.
Only the additional stuff, it's
would
later.
be the later date.
That's right. Yeah. So in some cases, if it's a really great new concept you've come up with, and it's only 3 months after you filed your provisional, maybe you should file another provisional if you still want to keep develop. So people who are doing a lot of development work, they might file 4, 5, 6 provisionals within a year, and then file one non-provisional. Especially in highly competitive market or kind of industries, they do that. And I've seen like 20 provisionals listed on a non-provisional filing. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If you got a tweak on your first
Yeah.
provisional,
Right.
just file another provisional, and then you got that date.
Right.
Instead of just waiting for all your tweaks
Right.
to get to filing the non-provisional, because you're going to have that later date for those tweaks.
That's right. Yeah. Don't wait until. Yeah. Don't wait the whole time. Right.
Yeah.
One more
Yeah.
addition to that, and when you're dealing with materials, if it's the same concept but you chose to go aluminum versus heavy steel or whatever, is the materials that are used to make your product considered a difference, or is it having this because it has the same concept, whether it was made out of plastic or aluminum or
Yeah.
steel, that's not going to matter because it's the concept.
Usually it doesn't matter. Usually the type of material is a design choice, unless for some reason using that material is really, whoa, nobody would ever think of using that material in this application, but that's pretty rare.
If you went from
Or
a
size.
half inch to
Right.
2 inches, just
Probably
because
doesn't
it's
matter.
a different size, that doesn't matter.
Probably not. Yeah. Yes.
One thing I found helpful, and I don't know exactly, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but there are a number of things that I've been developing and in the process of negotiating licensing. But then the year gets close, so then what I'll do is I'll keep, even though I can't daisy chain back to the earlier date, I've learned that it seems to be beneficial to keep filing.
You
Like-
need more provisionals?
Yeah, more provisionals. Like what I'm saying is, if a year is coming up, I wouldn't let it scare anybody off from filing another one and just keep adding the improvements.
Yeah, but
because when I convert, then I have everything together.
But you're going to lose that earliest priority date.
Yes.
So yeah, so what she's saying is you file provisional, then you wait a little while, and then before the year ends, you file another provisional. But if you file your non-provisional, over here, and that's more than a year from the first one, your priority date's only going to be 4 months.
But
Or
it
back,
includes
right?
everything.
But it can include everything. But again, if somebody filed in between that time, they're going to be prior to you. So you're taking a risk.
It's better than, if you're not ready
Yeah.
to file for a non-provisional.
That's true,
then
right.
It's not black or white, at least for me.
You can do that. You can just keep filing provisionals, but don't think that you're getting the date all the way back. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
Let's say your provisional filing is about to expire after a year. Can you refile that exact same?
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't refile exactly the same thing, just get a new priority date? Just to
Yeah. Now yes.
Or do they don't even look at it, so they wouldn't even know it's the exact same thing, right?
And it's never published, so it's not public disclosure. So, yeah.
So you could just keep, if you need more time, you just keep
Yeah, we're taking a risk, so yeah. Right.
Right.
As long as you kept it, as long as you didn't publicly disclose it. See, a lot of people they'll file a provisional and then they'll publicly disclose it, and then they kind of want to extend things, but then you can't because you got that public disclosure 1-year limitation in the U.S. Yeah.
It is important, though, that you do refile it before the first year expiration date, because once that year expires, then you're kind of at SOL.
Really, with a provisional, it doesn't really matter. Because you're restarting your date after a year anyway. So if you file at 364 days or 410 days, you're established a new priority date.
After that 365 days on the 366, whatever.
Yeah.
That comes after 365, right? 366.
Yeah.
Okay, counting's still good.
Yeah.
You couldn't go file a non-provisional for it at that point, could you?
You can always file non-provisional. It's just, yeah,
But
you
couldn't
can't
access
claim.
the earlier date.
you're 366 days and you file, you can't get the priority date back.
Right, starting all over again.
Believe me, I wake up in the middle of the night worrying about that a lot.
What day is it? What day is it?
And there is a recourse. You can file a PCT and request restoration of the right to priority, and they charge $1,000 for it, and then you can still maintain priority date back to that provisional. But you don't want to be in my situation and have to do that because instead of a U.S. non-provisional filing fee, it's the PCT filing fee, which is $2,500 plus $1,000. So it's a $3,500 mistake.
How
Which you don't want to do.
How much of a window do they give you to file that?
What? No, 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, sorry, when you first.
What if you're trying to develop a product that targets a specific subset of people? You'll have to try your product out with that subset people to find out if it doesn't work.
Right.
Because you're showing it to those people constitute a
Public disclosure?
public disclosure unless you get NDAs from them.
Yeah, it does, yeah. But they're general public, yeah.
How do people that say developing medical devices achieve their goals?
File provisional first. And go and do that. Yeah, whenever you, always, at a minimum, just file provisional and then go get some input. Yeah. It's cheap. You know? Yes.
If somebody files a provisional, and let's just say they didn't go through with it, but they made it a public to see if it was worth doing, and then they decided not to. And then later down the road, you do a provisional, and then would that be considered prior art if you didn't know about it? But what do they do with provisionals
that aren't converted?
That aren't converted, is that
That's a good one. It's not public disclosure, but the rule says filing a year before. Yeah, that's a really odd one. I think it comes down to it being more than a year before. I'm not sure about that one. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
I've never had a provisional cited against me that
could be.
I think it's still prior art though, because it's more than it was filed before yours. I think it's more if it's filed more than a year before yours. It would definitely be because that would be because the U.S. is still it's first to file. But you have a year from public disclosure. Yeah, I don't know. I have to get back to you on that one.
How do you find out about it if it's not disclosed?
You can't. You can't find it in the patent prior art search. Only the patent offices know about it. Yeah.
I thought they just threw away the provisional patent after a year. They don't even look at them, they're in the trash.
They don't come up in any sort of. I have a subscribe to a search engine that I use, but you definitely aren't going to find it because it never was published. So, just like also non-provisionals that were filed, that they filed a non-publication request and they abandoned them, they're not public disclosures, but they're patent filings. And the rule says patent filing more than a year before yours, then that's a statutory bar. Yeah.
Do they even record it or just throw them away? I thought they just threw them away.
I don't think they throw anything away.
Yeah.
So at what point
Okay, hold on.
does it become an abandoned patent?
What's that?
At what point does it become an abandoned patent?
If you don't, if you have an issued patent, and there's issue fees or maintenance fees that are due between the 3rd and 4th year, 6th and 7th year, or 7th and 8th year, and 11th and 12th year. So you have to pay those fees those years before it goes abandoned. Yeah.
Okay, let's say somebody files a non-provisional, they don't publicly disclose it, they abandon it, somebody else comes along, gets a patent on the very thing that that person had filed a non-provisional about.
Yeah.
And then that person who filed the non-provisional finds out about this patent. And they go and now disclose to that person, I had filed
it before.
Can that invalidate the patent?
I got to find out about it. I think it's more than a year before you filed, it can. And if the patent office didn't find it, then I don't know how anybody else would ever find it.
If it was never disclosed.
Yeah, I don't know how that would happen.
It's only the owner that could disclose it.
Yeah, that's an odd question.
You dropped the ball, didn't follow it through.
It's never come up, and I do a ton of patents, so I don't even know if they. I don't know if they look at the public disclosures. I've never even had one that wasn't published cited against an application. Yeah.
I have a quick-
Oh,
What
sorry, go
about,
ahead.
abandoned patents? Provisionals aren't abandoned patents or not? Because I know patent office makes those open to the public.
The provisionals, you can pay a fee after you.
No, I mean, once you abandon a patent or something,
Yeah.
they make it so you can get and view the patent at the patent office.
Only if it was a publicly, if it's published and abandoned, then you can find it. And if you file non-provisional and it becomes published patent application or patent, and it references a provisional, you can send an email to the Document Services Division and say, hey, send me a copy of that provisional, and they'll send you a copy of it.
But they don't list the provisionals.
They're listed on the front cover, yeah.
No, but they don't list them as abandoned patents.
The provisionals aren't abandoned. Provisionals are filed, and then you either convert them or file a non-provisional and claiming the benefit of them, or they just are there. They're nothing happens to them. They're just
Okay, this
Yeah.
might help clear things up a
Yeah.
tiny bit for everybody. This
Okay.
is a quote from the Inventor's Eye, which is a magazine published by the USPTO regarding provisional patent applications. Further, because a PPA is not made public unless its application number is noted in a later published application or patent, the failure by an applicant to file a non-provisional application based on his/her PPA will not lead to public disclosure of his or her invention.
Right.
Does that kind of clear things up?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not, I mean, provisionals are never published, but you can get a copy of them if there is a published application that references it. So that's,
And if somebody files a provisional and they follow it up with a non-provisional, that provisional application will become a part of the patent file wrapper, and that will eventually be public through public parent.
that's right, yeah. Yeah, so you can look on a copy of any published patent, if they reference a provisional, like I said, if you want to know what it says, just, you can get a copy. Yeah.
Ever feel like you've got a tough and complicated job?
What?
Ever feel like your job is pretty hard?
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got up at 3:30 this morning. I'm busy. Hold on, one second, yeah.
Alex, how many months is it before it becomes public? Once you do your patent, is it 1 year that?
18 months.
18 months.
So if you do a provisional, and then you file a non-provisional, it's going to publish 6 months from, if you wait a year, it's going to publish 6 months after you file a non-provisional. Yeah, so it's not 18 months from non-provisional filing if you have an earlier priority date. It's 18 months from the earliest priority date.
I went looking for mine on the Google search.
It's not on there yet. It's only been like 12 months.
One of the things we're working on is trying to get that optional, that the inventor can decide if they want it
Good
published
idea.
or not. You know, so rather than it just automatically being published after 18 months.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's-
Wouldn't that be kind of crucial to the prior art?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
that complies with the rest of the world. I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, but that's been
Yeah.
batted around.
And the U.S. has that non-publication request. Other countries don't have that. So the U.S. gives you another sort of strategy for filing if you're not sure if you want to keep it public or get a patent, or or if you're not sure if you want to publish it or.
So, before we wrap, I'm going to go through just a few things.
Okay. Last question. Yeah.
I found mine on Google the first month. How come? Like within probably 2 weeks from issuing.
Well, yeah. Once it issues, it's published. Yeah.
That's it.
If you get a gold seal copy patent from me, it's a public domain. Yeah, you can look it up. And usually, I try to send my clients the PDF because it'll be published like the day after or the day of issuing. And I try to send it to them that day, and then I'll get in the mail. I'll get that gold seal pretty copy and send it to you or give it to you. Yeah. So. Very good.
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I have cards. If you want, there's cards outside there, or
I've already put
okay.
them away, but you've got
Oh,
your stuff.
all right, stuff here.
there.
Yeah. If you want to talk about it.
I just want to go through these really quick because I wanted to make sure when you guys leave, you have the big picture, too. So not only have you got some useful information you can use, but also so that when I send out requests saying, who's going to go to Andy Bigg's office with me? So you'll know what I'm talking about. It's really pretty good. We've already talked about this. We've talked a little bit about, how our large corporations started the same way we did, in the garage, okay? Disney, Mattel, they all started in garages. Now, one of the things that really is kind of impactful is that, we've been number one for almost 200 years. We now are number 12 because we're not protecting our patents well enough. We're getting back to where we were before, but one of the things that, Alex talked about too with the software and artificial intelligence, it's more difficult to patent that in our country than it is like in China. So China's gotten really smart, not to beat them up because they are smart, but they've been kind of stealing from us, the IP for years, kind of right out the front door, right? Well, now, as they understand that protecting your innovation is the basis of building a country, and that's what they want to be, as the most powerful country. So what they're doing is really beefing up their patent laws. So their patent protection now is stronger than the United States. So some of our best innovators are going to China to get their patents because they're protected better there. And now I'm talking right now about artificial intelligence. And the reason why I want to make sure that everybody really understands this and how important it is, to kind of get behind us here on this is with artificial intelligence software, our entire world is going that direction. It really is. Even when you think about like the buttons on your shirt, we think of a machine making those. Well, no, that machine is driven by software. So everything is software driven. Only 48% of early stage funding for artificial intelligence went to Chinese companies in 2017 and only 30% to American companies. So when you think about how important this is, our entire electric grid, our nuclear subs, our Navy ships, all of that is driven by artificial intelligence. So, we're concerned about our little products, that we have, and I know mine was like a little nothing thing, but, when I really look at how important it is for our voice that we have now to make sure that this kind of reverses. Because if, let's say some of our best innovation in artificial intelligence goes to China, and China doesn't have to expose that to us. They don't have to share that, at all. So as we all kind of go through this world of everything's getting a little tense everywhere, we need to make sure we keep our innovators here. Because we are the innovators. We're not the copiers. But China's being really smart. They really are. I got to hand it to them. That's a smart business move. And then some of the things, of course, like what Alex was saying on patent enforcement, it is a game of kings. If you have the money, you can play the game. But if you don't have the money, those big corporations can run you down. So again, that's one of the things we're trying to change, and we are changing it. So, I told Alex earlier, we kind of want to scare everybody, but not scare everybody. You know what I mean? And not scare everybody to the means that you're going to stop doing what you're doing. Absolutely not. But be very aware of what's going on. And then the three bills that are out, there's the Massey Act, the Stronger Bill, and then the Inventor Protection Act, which is what Alex talked about. And we're really focusing in on the Inventor Protection Act, and the reason why is it's more comprehensive. And it has a better chance of getting through, than the others do. So they're modifying that a little bit right now. So I will have some more information on that later. But, we are meeting with our elected officials. So a lot of times I'll send out the invitation saying, I'm going to, got something set up with Kirsten Cinema or whatever, and I'll send it to the members. But I started realizing, this is really more than just our members. It's every inventor in the state. We all need to, even if you're not an inventor, we all need to be aware that things need to change, and they won't change unless we're a part of it, unless we're the ones that are initiating it.
So if you see something coming out from me, in our email blast saying, who could go to Andy Biggs' office with me, please realize it's important. So we've had so many people volunteer to go, and it's been wonderful.
Do you have a quick update of where the actually is?
Where what?
Where it is in-house?
We have, let's see, Paul Gosar is co-sponsoring it. We also had one other co-sponsor, but he actually didn't win re-election, so we're kind of like backtracking a little bit. So no, it hasn't gone anywhere. It's number 6,557. So they've probably gotten to number 3 by now.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've got right now. I just had a message from Josh in the group that they're kind of revising the strategy for 2019 because we have a new Congress, so our strategy is going to change a little bit. So as that changes, and I kind of get a feel for it, and we're also going to do a social media campaign also. Then I'll be sending that out, through our newsletter. So if you're not signed up to get our newsletters, please do, so that we can keep you apprised of what's going on, because we are making a difference. We truly are. This has been such a civics lesson for me. I always felt like I have no power. It's just me, and the only power I have is going to the voting booth. And now I'm realizing, heck no. We are a lot more powerful when we actually really do group together, because I'm seeing it firsthand. We sent to Director Iancu 12 things that we would like to see change the PTAB, and he's got 9 of them done already. Okay, so when I say it's happening, it's really happening. It's not happening fast enough for us, but according to Josh and Paul and some of the group that's really spearheading this, is they truly feel that if we don't get something done and get back on track again within like a year, it's going to be too late. China will be that strong at that point. So that's why I'm saying that I did want to take the time to point out to everybody how important it is. We're not doomed or anything like that, but it is important so that our voice is heard and the inventors don't get lost in the shuffle. Okay? So anyway, thank you.
Thank you
very much.